Okay, hello everyone. My name is Stefan Ivanovski from Lifestyle Democracy, your host today. Lifestyle Democracy is a platform or a podcast where we seek to create a community where we learn to live and build democracies one day at a time. Today, we have a special guest. It's Yuliy Lobarev, who is a worker owner of Rad Co-op and a cooperative member at Patio. He's currently based in Russia. So before we jump into the interview, I just wanted to introduce the topic of today, which is going to be tech worker cooperatives and the impacts of artificial intelligence. And the reason we are bringing this topic to attention is because tech workers who have long been known for having high paying jobs and high quality jobs are being laid off in large numbers in recent years. This is happening even in big tech firms that have been recording record profits and valuations like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. Uh, and workers, especially tech workers, have been responding in various ways to these massive layoffs through different workplace democracy initiatives. And by workplace democracy, we're thinking of different uh, forms of horizontal management or initiatives where workers have a greater voice in decision making processes in the companies. And these range from traditionally unions to various forms of employee and worker ownership. And the topic of today's discussion will be the uh, specifically the Rad Cop worker cooperative based in Russia, as well as the Patio International Cooperative Network of tech worker cooperatives. So I introduced this topic by saying that we are going to be discussing the democratization of tech work. And by democratization, we understand the process of empowering individuals and communities without harming others. I also opened by saying that we're talking about building a community where we want to learn and about living and building democracies. So it's not the emphasis on one type of democracy, but rather democracies. There are democracy is not a singular model in of governance in this podcast as we understand it. And the other emphasis is on lifestyle. It's about making these types of democracies be part of our daily life, our daily lifestyle. So this is the topic of today's discussion, and the tension that we want to understand is whether workplace democracy can respond to some of the challenges that we're seeing with how tech work, especially in the age of AI, is being restructured. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Yuliy Lobarev, who will tell us a little bit more about his experience working as a tech worker cooperative member. So, just briefly, Yuliy Lobarev is a cooperative governance researcher associated with the cybersecurity cooperative Rad Cop and the Patio International Cooperative Network. He's been transitioning from an IT specialist role where he's focusing on researching diverse aspects of cooperatives, including their formation, international differences, and the coexistence of their business and cultural models. His research directly addresses the challenges of infrastructure and governance by exploring ways to enhance human thinking and maintain personal agency within cooperative digital structures. Yuliy, thank you for joining me on this podcast. Now, I would like for you to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit more about what do you do um, and how you came about to be a worker cooperative member. And before that, I think it's important to define what does a worker cooperative mean and mean more specifically to you.
Thank you, Stefan. My name is Yuliy. I work with Rad Cop. It's a cybersecurity cooperative. So we have started a bit more than 3 years ago in 90 1992. So we are a rather young organization, and just a small update. I am not a worker owner just now, just a worker here. We plan to increase the number of worker owners, but we are still discussing how to do it better. So, a cooperative for me, it can be many things. First of all, it's an organizational form because we have legislation which basically defines what the worker cooperative is. But of course, we can create a cooperative, then the owners will vote on a board or on a chair, and then these people will just rule this cooperative like in limited liability company or in a shareholders company. So it's also a culture, governance model, not just what kind of legal form it has. So I think we should define a cooperative not only by its legal form, but also by its governance structure, governance model, and probably even culture, because we can remember cooperative principles, cooperative values, even if not every cooperative follows these principles and values, still there are good guidelines what to do.
So just a clarification. So you said Rad Cop, if I understood correctly, has been in operation for 3 years or?
Yes, just a bit more 3 years. But I can also add that people who established this cooperative, they also worked as freelancers with each other, I think for several more years, like 3 or 4 years.
And how long ago did you join and why did you join?
Well, I have joined almost in the beginning, so I'm here for almost 3 years already. And I've joined before because our chairman asked me to help him and other cooperators, other workers, basically to do something. I'm not a cybersecurity specialist myself. I am more like IT specialist, engineer, and even cybersecurity specialists. They also need an IT infrastructure to care about. So I thought that it's an interesting opportunity to try to work in a cooperative to see what it's about. So I decided, why not? Let's try. We the only cybersecurity cooperative in Russia so far, and probably maybe one of the few in the whole world, considering that there are not many IT cooperatives around.
So, why did you decide to join a worker cooperative and did you have any prior knowledge about worker cooperatives?
Well, actually, I hadn't hadn't have much. Hadn't had much, yes, because it was a new topic for me, and that was actually one of the reasons why I found Patio, because I couldn't find many local sources or materials or articles in Russian about cooperatives. Well, of course, now I know more about this topic, and I can find even Russian sources. But 3 years ago, it was a bit difficult, so I started to look for English sources, and I found, I think, the UK Federation, one of the first sources, workers.coop, and also Patio, because it was also a network of technological cooperatives, and it was easy to join. So I started to talk to people and got some useful information.
And previously, where did you work? Did you work in another worker cooperative, or in what form did you work before joining Rad Cop?
Before this, I worked in a regular limited liability company.
And for how many years did you work before joining Rad Cop?
Well, I have rather big experience in this field. I think about 15 years, something like this.
Oh, okay. And what is the size of Rad Cop? How many members does it have, and what's the structure of Rad Cop?
Let's talk about workers because it's
Mhm.
easier. We have about 40 workers right now, but not all of them are full-time workers. I think about 16 or 17 are full-timers. The rest are part-timers or freelancers.
Mhm.
We have to arrange it like this because the cybersecurity market here is rather seasonal, and we have a lot of projects in the end of the year, but only few in the beginning of the year. So we have to use freelancers' work to adapt.
Mhm. So yeah, for those who may not be familiar, in a worker cooperative, typically there are members who are usually worker owners, but sometimes there are cooperatives from what you're describing, Radcop seems to have this more of a hybrid model where some workers are member owners and some are freelancers. So can you explain the structure of Radcop and what kind of a legal entity does it have?
Well, the legal entity is, if I translate into English, it's a production cooperative, which is
Mhm.
basically the only kind of entity suitable for workers' cooperative. So it's really a cooperative on paper. In the same time, we have only 6 owners right now because we still don't have a viable solution how to add more worker owners. Basically, we are working on our governance, and we would like to improve it as much as we can before introducing more worker owners. But
Mhm.
in the same time, we basically every active person, every worker can participate in the governance or in decision making.
And what are some of those challenges that make it difficult to incorporate other member owners?
Well, I think the current idea is that cooperatives are not well known here right now, and people mostly know only hierarchical organizational models. So it's rather difficult for newcomers to adapt to such horizontal self-management systems. Also, I think another problem is agency, because people have to think for themselves and do something only. Well, basically, they should be entrepreneurs. Everyone should be like an entrepreneur, to think for themselves, to work for themselves. It's very active mindset, I think, and people need to learn it for a while. So basically, most of people agree that we don't have enough people with such a mindset to add them to worker owners
Yeah.
list.
And what do you think is necessary to cultivate that kind of mindset?
Oh, well, it's a difficult question. We're still discussing it because we have a lot of ideas ranging from just watching videos and movies about people with similar mindsets, or going to special courses, getting learning, training, whatever. But I think we should investigate it a bit more. For example, I'm learning works of Michel Foucault, the French philosopher, and he has very interesting model of governance and power, which is called disciplinary power. I think it can be used to create a good model how to not force but help people in a cooperative to adapt better to cooperative values and even this entrepreneur's mindset. But it's still a work in progress.
Very good. I was curious to know how was the idea for Rad Cop born? Do, do you have the origin story behind
You mean the name?
not just the name, but the idea itself? Why was it formed as a worker cooperative? It's not, as you
Uh,
said, it's not typical that tech workers in Russia or more broadly would decide to form a worker cooperative.
well, as far as I know, it was kind of discussion among future worker owners, basically freelancers at this time, because they needed some kind of enterprise. The reason is simple. In Russia, several kinds of cybersecurity services require licenses, and some types of these licenses can be obtained only for enterprises, not for private people. So they had to create an enterprise, and they thought about it for a while. Our chairman have studied cooperatives at this time, and they decided they can try it because it was an interesting, maybe a novel form of enterprise for that moment, considering we don't have many IT cooperatives in Russia, and as far as I know, in other countries, there are mostly agricultural cooperatives or consumer cooperatives, but not IT cooperatives. So they thought about it for a while. They decided just to try because this kind of enterprise can be transformed into limited liability company or shareholders company if needed. But so far it works for us.
And what do you think? makes Rad Cop successful to date? It's been on operation for 3 years, and according to some statistics, usually businesses, especially startups, have a failure rate within the first 5 years of over 90%. So I hope that you remain successful. I just was curious, what do you think makes Rad Cop successful to date? And what are the challenges ahead that you foresee?
I think that, of course, it's a bit of chance. So we have enough clients so we can even grow and find more people to work together. But it's difficult to say. Maybe we have enough of people with good expertise. For example, some of our specialists have more than 10 years experience in cybersecurity, and we have people with good communication skills, good accountants, good project managers, of course, good auditors, and it helps that these people have worked together before forming the cooperative, so they got some contacts and managed to transform these contacts into clients. And about as for challenges, I think in the same time it is one of the challenges our rapid growth. We have to create a lot of processes, documentation, rules, how to work together, because as you can imagine, if there are 3 or 5 people in a cooperative, they can just gather together and discuss everything. But we have already more than 40 people, and even getting everyone together, it's a difficult task. Not just discuss and agree on something. So we have to build more or less horizontal structure with a lot of roles, responsibilities, and so on. I hope it will work in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And who are your clients and where are they based?
Right now, they are mostly based in Russia because it's easier to find local clients, and we mostly work with finance institutions right now, like banks or payment systems, because our legislation for finance institutions is very rapidly changing. So they need penetration tests quite often. They need audits, like compliance audits, and sometimes secure application development. But we are also looking for international clients. For example, recently we finished a project for this UK federation I mentioned already, workers.cooperative. Workers.coop, sorry.
Okay, yeah, yes, I'm familiar with workers.coop. Great. So mentioning now the international clients, I think that's a good segue to talk about Patio. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is Patio? When was it founded?
Sure. Basically, Patio is kind of informal network of technological cooperative. I mean informal because we don't have an enterprise yet or an office. We have channels to discuss things and working groups, which we call circles using Socratic model. But in general, we are just a group of volunteers who gathered together from members cooperatives around the world, and we are looking for ways how to improve cooperation between the members, how to find new clients, and probably help a number of cooperatives work with a client. And it was created, I think, in 2018 when the first discourse forum was created by the very first Patio members, and we started to grow from here. People visited the UK, met with cooperators, and after a while we got our own landing page. We've met more like-minded people on different events, and we even helped organize some events like the Kudin event in Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago. So right now we have, I think, about 60 cooperative members and probably more than 600 people from these cooperatives in total.
Very nice. Yeah. So I just wanted to make a clarification. I think probably you meant 2018. You mentioned 1918 as the founding year, but I think it's probably 2018. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah. Um, yeah. So so you say there are about 60 cooperatives. From how many countries are there cooperatives represented
Uh, I,
at
I
Patio?
think I think about 20-25 countries.
Mhm. And what are the channels of communications that you said? Is there a particular set of tools that are used? Because in my previous discussions with worker cooperative members, they emphasize open source software. So I was curious if this is something that Patio also embraces.
That's true. Many people from cooperatives I know they embrace open source software, and in Patio we also use Mattermost chat to daily communications, let's say. And we also have an xCloud instance to share files, keep them, and so on, to do some
Mhm.
work on documents together.
What is the rationale or the connection between cooperatives and open source software?
I think it's kind of mm, similar. I think they have similar idea because cooperatives they are horizontally managed and they are a bit independent from big tech corporation. If we talk about IT cooperatives, in the same time, open source software is also a bit independent from software products from Google, Microsoft, and companies like this. So it's, I think, open source is more or less aligned with cooperatives' values. That's why probably many cooperatives use it.
And are there any particular challenges to using open source software as opposed to more widespread collaboration tools like Google Cloud or any of the other common chat communication channels like WhatsApp, Signal, perhaps Telegram?
Well, I can say that Mattermost is a very good chat software. It has a lot of functions we can use, and even some of them which we don't use. So it's very good comparing, from my opinion, to WhatsApp, Telegram, and all this commercial software. It's also good in a sense that it's basically made for organizations. So it's self-contained instance just for people in one organization. And as for other products like Nextcloud, it probably has its own issues because it may be not as compatible as products from Microsoft, for example, but people are still using mostly Microsoft document formats. So, but in the same time, I think it's a working alternative, and if people can live with a couple of quirks, it's really a working product.
Great. So Patio, you said it's an informal organization of worker cooperatives in the tech sector, representing over 20 countries, about 600 workers. I was curious, what types of collaborations do Patio members engage in? Are there any particular projects that members of the Patio network have worked on for a commercial client, for example, or any other type of client?
Well, we mostly work with commercial clients, I believe. Mostly there are collaborations between 2 or 3 cooperatives. When, for example, one cooperative need an expertise in another field, they ask another cooperative to help them. Or sometimes it's just one cooperative need an expertise of a particular person, so they can invite a worker from another cooperative just as a freelancer. As far as I know, we've got a number of projects, probably more than 10 of them so far. Unfortunately, not a big number, but we hope that we can get more projects in the future because it's actually kind of our superpower. I mean, we have people all around the globe with different expertise, so we can quickly assemble a team to work on almost everything. We still need to solve some of our internal problems and arrange our own processes, but at least that's what we would like to do.
How did you personally get involved in Patio?
Well, I just registered in the Mattermost chat and became involved.
And how did you learn about Patio?
Well, that's difficult to say. Maybe it was workers.cop forum or a source close to them. Then I found, I think, the website. I looked for contacts and found a GitHub page, which helped me to find one of the landing page maintainer, a nice person from the Japanese cooperative, who invited me in the Mattermost chat. The rest is history.
What are the prerequisites or the conditions to joining Patio?
There are not many. Basically, a person should represent workers' cooperative, and the members should be agreeable, or they can vote somehow or decide in another way that they want to be a part of Patio. then the representative should join the chat to stay in touch. And we usually ask for representatives to be more active, not just to stay in the chat and read what's happening, but participate in circles and help us to build this network together.
Can you explain a little bit more about this idea of circles and how it works and where it
Sure.
comes from?
Basically, it came from sociocracy model. So people are working in circles instead of regular departments in hierarchical organizations. So, for example, if we have a cooperative of developers, the group of developers who develop in Go, for example, or Python, they will form a circle. Then usually a sociocracy suggests to form another bigger circle from the representatives of smaller circles. We have something similar in Patio. We have general assembly, and usually not just everyone from every cooperative joins this assembly, but mostly circle representatives. And we have, I think, 4 circles right now who do different sort of work. For example, we have an internal organization circle, and we have strategic alliance circle, and groups like this.
And what is the difference between a circle and a department? From what you're describing, it seems like, according to sociocracy, which is a governance type of model, it seems that a circle is a synonym for a department in a hierarchical organization. How is a circle under the sociocratic governance model different from a department in a hierarchical firm?
Mostly it's different that a circle doesn't have a manager or any kind of boss in the circle. So people just work together, and if they want to decide on something, you can use a Socratic consent decision-making process, or if they decide on another decision-making process, they can use something else. They can vote, they can use consensus or whatever they like. And when they decide on something, well, this decision goes live.
Okay, so the difference is that there is collective decision making, and the
Right.
power to decide is not vested or held by a figure of authority, like a manager or an owner, but rather it's decided by the members within that circle in a democratic
Yes,
fashion.
yes, that's true. They just need to stay inside the domain of responsibility, basically to not to go in other circles' domain and decide something for them. But they can always ask and collaborate.
So how are circles delimited? Who decides how many circles there are going to be and what each circle will do?
Well, I think people just find the specific fields or areas they need to do some sort of work. For example, in Patio, someone has to do internal organizing, like invite new people, talk to them, answer incoming emails or other sorts of communication, contact representatives from different cooperatives, and so on. All of these can be included into the domain of internal organization. So people who wanted to work on this domain, they just formed this circle, and voila.
Yeah, very nice. And how are workers compensated, if at all, for their work that they're doing at Patio, or is this voluntary type of engagement?
Right now, it's a voluntary type because we don't have any kind of fees or donors. A small announcement: if you want to sponsor us, feel free to find patio.com.
So how would the potential sponsors or donors be able to contribute, uh, given that it's an informal network? Is there some kind of a structure that would enable to receive payments and to disburse? Because there are operations and, well, there are members in 20 countries with probably 20 different jurisdictions and rules. So how would that work potentially in the future? Is this something that's
We
part of the discussions at Patio?
Yes, we are still investigating it. We want to establish an office somewhere, mostly to help cooperatives to collaborate, maybe transfer money, sign contracts, and whatever. And if we have an office, it would be easier to find donors who can sponsor us if they want, or just distribute money for workers, because right now everyone is a volunteer in Patio basically. And as we don't have any fees right now, we couldn't afford to pay for any work. But if we get some fees one day, we can probably find people who will just focus on this work. And I think it will help us to be more organized.
And how are collaborations between different worker cooperatives that are members of Patio established, and how are they carried out? Because in my previous work in consulting, whenever we would form these consortia or these groups where we would collaborate together, there would have to be some kind of an agreement, whether it's written or more of an informal type of agreement or an arrangement to collaborate together. So, what kinds of arrangements are made when you have worked on some of those 10 or so projects that you've mentioned? And do individuals become part of the Patio network, or sometimes cooperatives themselves join together and then they go and bid on a project together? How does the collaboration among different worker members and worker cooperatives within Patio work?
Uh, I think as for collaborations between cooperatives, they can just sign an agreement between particular entities or enterprises and work together. And if one cooperative need only one or two workers from another cooperative, they can just hire such people as freelancers. Probably in some cases they had only informal agreement. But for bigger projects, I believe we had a formal contract between entities.
And who holds the contract? Is there
Well,
usually one cooperative, or it's
considering that 2 or 3 cooperatives are collaborating together, I believe that each side holds their own copy of a contract. So they just negotiate on something they would like to do together.
and where are these clients based? The clients that Patio has worked with.
I think we've got some clients from Europe. I'm not sure which country, and probably even some clients from the US.
And which circles are you part of at Patio?
Right now, I'm mostly active in the strategic alliance circle. We mostly contact external world. We look for opportunities, contacts, and think how can we improve Patio in longer time frame.
Given that you've mentioned that you've talked a little bit about your engagement with Patio and also your engagement as a worker at Rad Cop, I was curious, how much time do you dedicate to the activities with Patio, and how much time do you dedicate to the specialized worker cooperative type of governance activities within Rad Cop?
Well, I can say that I dedicate probably not as much time as I should because I still have another work like my main work in the cooperative. But that's probably a couple of times each week. Sorry, a couple of hours each week for Patio and several hours for Rad Cop to investigate what kind of governance we can build, how, and so on.
Okay. And now that you've talked a little bit about Patio, I would be curious to know, how do other potential tech worker cooperatives and individuals, especially workers of cooperatives who would be interested in working with Patio, how would they be able to learn more about their work, and how can they become members?
If they are from IT cooperative, they can just fill our contact form at the landing page patio.coop. So after some negotiation, when we describe in details what we are doing, how we are doing it, they can decide for themselves. As for non-IT cooperative and private persons, I think even they probably couldn't join Patio, we can still connect to them and become like partners or find other opportunities to do something together.
And how long does the onboarding process take once it's established that there is a tech worker member of a cooperative or a worker cooperative reaching out to Patio? How long would it take for the onboarding process to take?
Well, I think it can be rather quick process, like a week or two. It depends on how quickly they can decide after we provide them all the information. So if we can send them an answer in a day, and they can decide in a couple of days. Then maybe we can introduce them to the rest of Patio in a week.
And
I
what is the
can just
expectation?
sorry. The expectation is basically to understand how we work, what kind of governance structure we have, and if they can participate as volunteers. Well, that would be great, but it's not like a mandatory condition, at least for right now.
Excellent. So they can learn more about Patio on patio.coop, right? That's PATIO.COOP.
Yes.
Excellent. It's a fun looking website, so people who are interested in learning about tech worker cooperatives should definitely visit it. Now that we've talked a little bit about international worker cooperative organizing, but also before worker cooperative organizing, this largely falls under the umbrella of collective action and governance. I would be curious to hear from you. What do you understand by collective action?
Tough question, because, well, maybe not very tough. For me, it's rather simple. People can assemble together, make a collective decision, and then act on it. Something like this, I believe. Of course,
And
they can consider maybe cooperativism, cooperative principles, democracy, or something related. If we, and then we can add some meaning to this action. So it wouldn't be just an action of a group, but for example, an action to make something good for others.
And for those who may not be familiar with the cooperative principles, they are seven. And the first one is voluntary and open membership. The second one is democratic member control. Third one is member economic participation. Fourth is autonomy and independence. Fifth is education, training, and information. Sixth is cooperation among cooperatives. And seventh is concern for community, which is something that you just mentioned, the importance of not just doing something for the members, which is what worker cooperatives have a mandate to serve the members. In a worker cooperative, the members being the workers. In a consumer cooperative, the members being consumers, and so forth. But the idea of the cooperative principles is that the impact should also extend to the broader community. So, mentioning this particular principle, what are some of the initiatives at Patio and Rad Cop that you engage in that seek to serve and address this concern for community, the seventh principle of cooperatives?
I think both in Patio and in Rad Cop, we believe that cooperative as a form of governance, a form of enterprise, can be beneficial for community because it promotes, or it helps to promote agency, helps to promote more human work conditions. So we think that if we do some advocacy, promotion, education, it will help community in general, like as people around us. Maybe they may not start cooperatives right away, but at least they can start thinking about it. They can change the governance model into more horizontal and so on.
So basically, it's the impact would be through the act of showing that democratic governance in tech firms can work and sharing that experience with others.
Yes, that's true.
So now that we're talking about collective action and governance, one of the challenges in the literature on cooperatives and worker-owned and worker-managed firms or self-managed firms is the level of participation and engagements. So what is the current level of participation and engagement at Rad Cop specifically and Patio?
I can say that unfortunately the level of engagement is not very high because in Patio people have to do their own work. In the cooperatives, they can understand that we are doing some strategic work which may help in future, but at the same time, well, they have to earn some money right now, and I can understand this. It's something similar in Rad Cop because we are working in projects. We are earning money doing this kind of job, and we understand that we also have to do some strategic work. At least we need to tune our governance to make it more aligned with our values, principles, with our ideas how a cooperative should work. But because we have a stage of the rapid growth, for example, I believe more than 1 year ago, maybe 1 year and a half, we have about 20 people. Right now we have twice more.
Mm-hmm.
So we can work if everything goes fine. We can easily grow up to 60 people or even 80 people. And it can be a nightmare to govern it using our current governance model. So we have to rapidly improve it, bring it to life, teach people how to use it, but at the same time, people have to work on the daily projects.
Speaking about the rapid growth, are there any examples of cooperatives that are larger? And before that, can you just say what is the size typically of worker cooperatives, the tech or IT worker cooperatives within Patio? What's the smallest IT cooperative that you know of versus the largest one? And have you had any kind of knowledge exchange within the Patio network about how have other cooperatives dealt with what you're anticipating this rapid growth?
As far as I know, the most of our cooperatives are rather small, less than 10 people, probably close to 5. There are smaller amount of medium-sized cooperatives like Rad Cop, so 20, 30, 40 members or workers. I'm not sure. And I think only one cooperative is as big as more than 100 people. So it's probably rather difficult to grow in general for a cooperative because it's difficult to keep culture, it's difficult to keep the governance model, especially when people don't know everyone personally. because when the organization is small, it's kind of easy. Everyone can gather together, even online. But imagine you have 100 people. Well, it's impossible for them to gather in one place and do something meaningful. So it means that the governance model should be something else, probably multi-level model with smaller units working as smaller cooperatives, and the big cooperative itself probably working as the second level cooperative. But
Can you
it's on them.
Mhm. Can you explain what you mean by multi-level and second order cooperative for those who may not be familiar?
Sure. Basically, it's similar to how cooperative federation work, because at least some of the cooperative federations are cooperatives, and they invite members like regular cooperatives. So a federation is a cooperative which is formed from cooperative member. Maybe if we create a similar structure for a big cooperative, probably not without splitting into separate enterprises, but with creating this layered or kind of hierarchical communication model, so people can govern themselves
Mm.
in a smaller unit, and they have some sort of governance bodies on a higher level, which can be formed from representatives from lower level units.
So you're just describing now a way of structuring hierarchies as cooperative scale. What do you think is the connection or the relationship between hierarchies, worker ownership, worker management, or worker cooperatives? Can hierarchies exist in worker cooperatives?
I think they can, and even if you look into sociocracy, it describes circles which send representatives to other circles, and this can happen on several layers, but in the same time, it's a description of a hierarchy, even if they are not saying it's a hierarchy. So I think some sort of hierarchy will exist in every cooperative, maybe even in a smaller cooperative of 3 people, because they may have a totally horizontal decision-making process, but in the same time, uh, one person may be a good accountant, which means they are like a boss in this field when they are deciding on accountant topics or things. Another person can be similarly a specialist in another area, which means they have kind of situational hierarchy. And it's not a bad thing. It's a normal thing because people are different. They have different knowledge, different skills. So they will create some sort of hierarchy anyway. But if we apply cooperative values and principles, we can create more humane system, more horizontal system in any way, even if we have some hierarchical relationships inside.
So basically, hierarchies are not antithetical, or they're they have their own place within cooperatives and horizontal organizations, so to speak. Even in the most horizontal organization you're describing, that there may be the existence of hierarchies because of the differences in skills, knowledge, and perhaps situational awareness.
Yes, that's true. That's how we want to create our own governance model in Rad Cop, and we already have something similar in Patio because there is the first level, individual cooperatives, and there is the second level of volunteers who work together in the Patio core, I can say.
Now that you're bringing the topic back to Patio, I remember when we first met at the Cooperative AI conference in Istanbul earlier this year in November. The profile was saying that you research how cooperative governance models differ across countries. Given that we've talked during the conference about the importance of global responses, unified responses for developing a type of cooperative AI, what do you see as the biggest challenges in creating an infrastructure to develop a more humane type of collaboration among IT firms that spans these differences uh, in countries and cultures and so forth?
From my not knowledge but experience, I think probably the main barrier is that for every or almost every cooperative, it's always easy to find clients inside their own country because clients usually also expect someone from their own country to work for them,
Mhm.
to provide services or create products. Of course, every country is different. Some has high barriers for any international, not just cooperation, but for international markets or providing services internationally. Some countries have lower barriers, but as the core, I think it's the idea that's it's easier because a lot of people just tend to do what is easier. So it's easier to find maybe a commercial partner inside our own country instead of looking for the same sort of partner, but a cooperative outside the country. And it's easier not only considering the mindset, it's often easier if you consider time spent, money spent, and other resources.
So it's easier to collaborate with what you know and who you know rather than trying to branch out to
Right.
cooperative members outside of your country. Okay, great. I would now shift the discussion to artificial intelligence. What does artificial intelligence mean to you?
No, it's very interesting term. I understand that many people think it's like human intelligence, but it's not. It's still artificial, it's still machine intelligence, but because people have used to communicate to other people, they started to extrapolate it to the machine intelligence. But I understand it's kind of popular belief, but I still think it's just a machine, maybe very good in particular fields, but it's a bunch of algorithms, computer power, something which can help people or maybe not help. It depends.
Do you engage with any AI tools? And if you do, which ones?
Do you mean personally or in Patio, in Rad Cop?
Personally, and then we can move to talk about how the cooperative decides and how the Patio decides which AI tools to use. So let's start with the
Sure.
personal use.
From my own perspective, I find large language models very useful tools. Of course, commercial tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, they are quite good, but fortunately, people can run open source models or even commercially sourced models using their own equipment. It may be not as fast, but it will be very private because you're not sharing data with commercial companies, with big tech. For me, they are good for research and some other related things. I think image generators, they also have potential. Of course, they create competition for designers and people like this, but in the same time, designers can also adopt such tools, and such tools can probably make them more creative if they use them properly.
And now moving on from the personal use to the organizational use of these tools, how does Rad Cop engage which AI tools to use? And in turn, how does Patio do so?
Considering Rad Cop, we understand that for us, AI tools is basically a must-have because there are a lot of cybersecurity threats which already are using AI tools. For example, there are AI-based Trojan viruses, which may use AI agents if you have them on your own computer to find data, private information, and work rather independently from attackers. Also, many attackers employ AI tools to make attacks faster, diverse, and more efficient. So for us, we have to rely on AI tools for protection. Fortunately, people are building not only offensive AI tools, but also defensive ones. And besides this, we also look into tools which can help us in our daily work, like large language models, RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation systems, which can help to create different sorts of like intelligent search and retrieval for information without relying on commercial systems and big tech.
What are these rack tools that you just mentioned or
There are
systems?
many of them. Basically, it's quite smart idea how to use large language models without any training, but in the same time make them to use existent corpus of text, basically in simple terms for you and for viewers, you can upload some texts into this system, and a special program will create a vector database of pieces from different texts, then index these pieces. So when you enter a request like tell me about dogs, the system will look in this vector database and find you all pieces of texts mentioning dogs. Then these pieces of text will be fed into a large language model with a request like this. This is a raw description. Please find something relevant to the following user's request. And then the original request follows. So a neural network like LLM will look through these pieces of text and creates an answer for you
Hmm.
using your own data.
And these models can be run on local machines. Are there any requirements?
Right. It can be run even without GPUs. You can run it on your laptop with requirements like 5 gigabytes of RAM and couple of gigabytes of storage space for this vector database and document storage. They will be slower, of course, but they will be totally private.
You've mentioned the importance of privacy. So I was curious, what are the considerations that as a cooperative, particularly Rad Cop and Patio, what kind of considerations do you have in deciding which AI tools to use and engage with?
Well, in Rad Cop, it's rather simple. We have the main priority is security. So we think mostly about how secure any system can be, because if we're using a publicly available neural network, who knows what happens with the data. I've seen a report recently that crazy number of people, like 60% or even more from companies, they share confidential information to publicly available AI systems. And
What do you mean by
now,
publicly available? Like
like
ChatGPT or?
ChatGPT, Gemini,
Okay.
Grok, and so on. And this data can be used for training, which means that with high probability, they can be extracted later. So you can share some sensitive private data like security, social security numbers, credit card numbers, and later someone will just extract them from the next generation of Grok, for example.
Mm, okay, I see. And so, um, does Radcop use ChatGPT or these publicly available LLM large language models?
Yes, some people use them, but we try to increase the awareness of secure and private use of
Mm.
such systems, first among ourselves and then among other people. For example, you've asked about Patio. I had a couple of workshops for Patio people, specifically about cybersecurity, and one of the topics was how to work with AI systems.
And are there any considerations as cooperative or taking the cooperative values into account when deciding how to engage with different AI tools compared to, let's say, a hierarchical or a traditional IT firm?
Well, we've thought about it in Patio, and in the preparation of the conference in Istanbul you've mentioned. We discussed it among ourselves, and we found that basically what we think probably the main difference is that commercial companies, they usually want to maximize profits, but cooperatives, they want to maximize good for people, benefits for people,
Mm,
not only inside the cooperative but also outside. So we should take in mind how, for example, big tech models are trained, how they are used. You can probably remember this very enlightening movie we've seen in the conference, In the Belly of AI.
yeah, yeah.
So, as far as I know, some cooperatives in Patio oppose to use any big tech AI tools because of the reasons how they are trained, how they are created, how human labor is exploited to create
Mm.
such models, such systems.
You've mentioned two topics, and I have two follow-up questions. So one was raising awareness about AI tools among members of the end workers in the Rad Cop cooperative, but also outside. So that leads me to ask about what does AI literacy mean? Before you answer, the second aspect that you've mentioned was the ethical considerations around the production of AI infrastructure and AI related systems like large language models. So first, I would like you to talk about what does AI literacy mean, and then I would like you to reflect upon what is ethical AI mean to you. So let's start with the first one. So what does AI literacy mean to you?
Basically, it's like other kinds of literacy, how to use a system for, well, for greater benefits, for greater good, to be more productive, because AI systems have, well, they can empower people, but in the same time, they have a lot of risks, like I've mentioned already, privacy risks, security risks. For example, there are agentic browsers around us made by big companies like Anthropic.
Hmm.
Don't remember the exact name. Basically, what this browser can
Anthropic, yeah,
do,
Anthropic. They are
yes,
behind
Anthropic.
Claude. Yeah. Yeah, Claude LLM, yeah.
What this browser can do, it can look into a web page, find hidden text, and use this hidden text as a instruction what to do. And then it can send some sort of private information from your own computer using your own mailbox to anyone in the world. So it's not only a privacy concern for me, it's also about security. And what I think can help here, uh, basically, we can start with something, how to use it responsibly. If you learn how to use a computer, it's basically very similar. But then what we can do, we can think about how it influence your thinking process, because people can talk to chatbots, and then they can create even conspiracy theories just by discussing particular topics. And it can be very difficult because modern chatbots are very responsive. They want people to feel comfortable, to feel good when they talk to chatbots, which means they can tell you something you like, not something which is true. And I am studying a topic which I call metacognitive literacy right now. Basically, another sort of literacy, but how to think about thinking, how to consider our own cognitive process. And I think that basics of such metacognitive literacy will be also AI literacy, because it will help how to think about my own thinking and even about thinking of AI. I understand that they think differently, probably very differently, and some people may not even call it this process thinking. But for regular users, we can say, okay, they think. And using this model, they can better understand the interaction between two minds, the mind of a person and the mind of AI system. So that's it.
That's very succinct way of describing the importance of AI literacy. And I like how you brought in the metacognitive aspects and the importance of thinking about thinking and thinking about AI and understanding that AI, it's not essentially the same way as human thinking, but rather it's machine algorithm. So now moving on to the second aspect that you touched upon in the previous response, it's the ethical considerations. You've mentioned that some members, some cooperative members of Patio are against the use of corporate AI large language models because of how, or big tech models, because of how these large language models are produced. What does ethical AI mean to you?
I think the ethical AI would mean a system which wasn't created using labor exploitation, because we can think about how rare earth components are mined for modern smartphones and electronic equipment. It's very similar to how data is mined or somehow processed by people with very low wages to use by AI companies. If we can create a more humane process to create databases, to create core well, let's say databases for training models and to maybe how we can improve these models using, well, we have to use people's work on many levels, and we can do it responsibly. Then we probably can create a sort of ethical AI system.
And who would be responsible for the creation, development, and deployment of responsible and ethical AI systems? What is the role of individual users? What is the role of cooperatives, of private companies and governments?
I think that private persons and commercial companies, they probably wouldn't have a big role, at least right now, because people tend to think about themselves, and unfortunately many don't care about ethical aspects. If they have a good tool which can produce interesting dialogues or funny pictures, they will just use it. It's very similar for commercial companies. If they mostly care about profits, it means they will use any AI system, ethical or unethical, doesn't matter. But governments, they can regulate it somehow. Of course, it depends how the government is formed, what kind of people they have, what kind of values they follow. But if the government itself is aligned with more humane values, they can probably ask even commercial companies to follow the example, to be less exploitable and more humane. And as for cooperatives, I think as many cooperatives follow some sort of cooperative values, and as they want people around them to get something from their work, from their activities, they can probably somehow lobby this sort of approach, or maybe even collaborate together to participate in creating or designing such systems.
Cooperatives are quite small, as you've established. Most of the worker cooperatives within Patio, they have less than 10 members, and the largest one being over 100 workers. This is very small compared to a big tech firm which has hundreds of thousands of workers and developers and so forth. Given the size, the small size of the IT worker cooperative movement and the small contributions that cooperatives have in the development of AI systems, what are the contributions that cooperatives can make to helping make more ethical AI systems, but also contribute to AI literacy?
I think that it may be not very easy because, as you said, there are not many cooperatives, not many cooperative people around. But in the same time, we can look into non-tech cooperative, because even agricultural cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, they still use some technologies, IT services, IT systems, and probably even AI systems. If they follow similar values, we can be aligned with them, and we can discuss how they can help us, maybe with some volunteering, maybe with money donations, maybe with something else like advocacy, or even, well, something else. I think there are ways how we can work together. Also, I see that this kind of movement to be more ethical, more humane, it becomes very popular, maybe not very popular in general, but at least in the same technology companies. I understand that some of them are doing it just to have good publicity, but in the same time, it means people are starting to think about it, think about similar values, even working in big tech companies, which means we can also align somehow and probably collaborate. And you've mentioned also big layoffs, and these people are also potential cooperators. I think we should look after them, probably educate them about cooperatives, which means we can increase the number of people who support these ideas, these ethics.
Mm. That's a good and realistic outlook on cooperatives. I was just curious now, what does cooperative AI mean and what does it look like?
I think cooperative AI can be an AI system which at least partially has been developed by cooperatives or designed by cooperatives, because it can be something small. It shouldn't be large language models with billions of parameters. It can be something used in image recognition on a particular factory, for example, something small, but still it can be a good start. So if you are a member of a cooperative and listening to this, think how to start small. Maybe if you develop a small AI system, it can be the very first cooperative AI system around the world.
Great. And you mentioned that tech workers who are laid off could be potential worker cooperators and that worker cooperatives should look after them. Why would a tech worker join a tech worker cooperative and not work for a traditional firm when there are already more traditional tech firms and things are established? So why would someone want to join and potentially do more work in a tech worker cooperative, given that there's that expectation of participation in governance? So why would a tech worker want to join a worker cooperative over working in a true and tried system?
I think that potential cooperators, worker owners, should look into history, because as far as I know, cooperatives are more resilient in times of perturbations, crisis, economics, collapses, because cooperators, they tend to look after each other. And if you join a cooperative, you may not get very high salaries as in big tech, but in the same time, you will invest into your future from the very first day. And basically, it can help your cooperative to live, to stay alive, even if regular companies like limited liabilities companies will go bankrupt. Because I understand people will still face difficulties, but at least you mentioned it yourself. I think that more cooperative will stay after a 5 years period than comparing to regular non-cooperative enterprises. So I think it's like investment in future to stay in a cooperative.
Well, great. Now I would like to conclude the interview with the final question or comment. Is there any question that I have not asked you that you wish I did? And on that note, if there's anything else that you would like to share as your concluding comment.
Well, I can share a bit more about Rad Cop, as right now we don't have any kind of cooperative workers federation in Russia, but we want to create one, like the second level body for cooperatives. Unfortunately, we don't have many cooperatives at all, but we plan to help people to find about cooperatives, learn more, and build their own cooperatives, even if they start small. I also would like to talk and discuss cooperatives, governance, metacognitions to anyone around the world, because I feel it's very promising and productive to discuss things across cultures. Well, I can tell it from my own experience, talking to people from Patio, from many countries. It's a unique perspective.
Why
Thank you,
is it?
Stefan.
Yeah. Just a follow-up question to that. Why is it important for you
Sure.
to talk about cooperatives and share this model with others in Russia? How has working in a cooperative changed you?
Well, I think it's good for people in longer horizon, longer perspective, because people can find not only work but very good community in a cooperative. I can say it will become like a family for you, but still, I believe many people can find friends in cooperatives, and they can also grow as persons in cooperatives, because if they do it correctly, they will become like entrepreneurs for themselves, which should help them in the long run.
Spasiba, Yuli. Thank you very much. This has been a very
You're
enjoyable
welcome.
interview. I hope we can do it again at some other point when you have more experiences and more adventures of your cooperative journey to share with me. And maybe we can talk also about metacognition once you
Sure.
dive deeper into that. So thank you very much for your time. And for those who are listening, I hope that you've liked this interview. Make sure to subscribe and follow, and also leave a comment to get the discussion going. And maybe you can drop a question for who you would like to have interviewed next, and maybe a question that you would like me to ask the next guest on the show. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
Yuliy, again,
Stefan.
and I wish you a great day, great week ahead, and lots of success in your personal and professional endeavors at Rad Cop and Patio.
Yes, thank you for you and good luck. Take care.
Thank you.